most experienced talk show moderator Muhanga, a veteran journalist, legislator, entrepreneur and development consultant, and RAMATHAN GGOOBI, an economist and university don.
Only audit institutions, effective budget tracking, e-government, e-procurement, and curbing illicit financial flow, they are the only practical ways of fighting corruption. So,
all on your public broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
A very good evening and warm welcome to this edition of Behind the Headlines. This May the 26th, 2021. It's a Wednesday, and I want to welcome you to the show. And what a week. Main story is definitely the happenings at Parliament of the Republic of Uganda. There is a change of leadership at the top. There are new MPs in place. Parliament is now fully constituted. We have a new speaker. We have a new deputy speaker, and exit the old groom. And now we are going to be looking at the prospects of the 11th Parliament, 2021 to 2026. And we are going to be asking ourselves here, and you, the public out there, I invite you to join us, those who are watching this show, to discuss with us, you know, what are the national expectations out there? Will the 11th Parliament meet those national expectations? Of course, to say there are national expectations, we must really know that there are many issues. Parliament is a legislative body. Parliament appropriates the budget, money that is supposed to be used to develop this country. Parliament is supposed to oversight the executive and other institutions of government. And Parliament is also a representative of the people of Uganda. How has the work been done? How is it going to be done? What are our expectations? Will the 11th Parliament be better? To discuss all that, I have the Honorable ABDU KATUNTU, MP for Bugweri County, and he has been a legislator, he says, for only 20 years. So he's a senior legislator, but a senior lawyer as well. Honorable KATUNTU, you're most welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Charles, and good evening, dear colleagues watching us. Next to him on his left, certainly social distanced, we have Sarah BIREETE. Sarah BIREETE is the Executive Director of the Center for Constitutional Governance. Sarah, you're most welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Charles, and good evening, viewers.
And finally, next to Sarah in the studio, we have the Honorable James KABERUKA. He is the MP for Kinkizi West. In the 11th Parliament. He was in the 10th Parliament. If you don't know Kinkizi West, just think about the Right Honorable Amama Mbabazi. That was his constituency. And after he left it in the able hands of Honorable KABERUKA. He's here with us. Honorable, you're most welcome to the show.
Thank you, Charles, and the viewers. I am happy to be here with you.
Good. Through Zoom, we have the Honorable Margaret Muhanga. Honorable Margaret Muhanga, are you already online? Margaret, I can see you. Good to see you, Honorable. We will also have Ramathan Gobi through Zoom as well. Ramathan, are you there as well? Ramathan, are you there as well? Okay, we are getting some echo. I will ask my technical team to correct that, to correct the technical hitches as we discuss. Okay, let's start with Honorable ABDU KATUNTU. The Parliament is now fully constituted. What are your expectations of this Parliament?
Well, it's substantively fully constituted, but there are some aspects of the leadership of Parliament which are not yet in place. For example, we have not constituted committees, and 95% of parliamentary business is conducted through committees. We don't have committee leadership. There are two sides of the aisle, the government business and then the minority or the opposition. Both don't have leaders now. We don't have leaders of the opposition, neither do we have the lead of government business. So yes, we have the top leaders in the House, the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker, but until we get all these leadership positions filled and constitute committees, that's when Parliament can begin on its ordinary business. What are our expectations? Well, the Constitution is very clear. The role of Parliament in society is to enact laws for good governance and economic development. We oversee, for example, the activities of the executive when we are performing the oversight functions. So I do expect that this Parliament, it's composed of many younger people. Yes, it's their first time to be in the Parliament, but they seem to be vibrant. They'll be holding government to account. I also hope they will pass the constitutional process of the budget process, that is the allocation of resources to different sectors of government or the economy to spur economic development. The biggest problem we have today is we do so much politicking instead of really concentrating on what Parliament should be doing. And I hope this time we'll be concentrating more, and especially the fourth-year state also, to concentrate more on the legitimate role of Parliament, the constitutional role of Parliament, other than to do a lot of politicking and so on. A little bit of drama by a member of Parliament, and we cause a debate over that for the next five years. Really, I expect, first of all, I don't expect the drama from members of Parliament. But at the same time, if it happens, we should be concentrating more on their role to see whether, as a country, we are having value for money. The expectations are high, especially from many of our people. Of course, we also have cynics, and so they always say they go there to enrich themselves, and we don't do work. But then there's a lot of work which is done by the institution, and this is the time. And I need to caution my colleagues, since you're asking what are the expectations. Let us look at the attrition rate. 68% of members of Parliament don't come back, meaning the population out there is dissatisfied with some of the things individual members do. 68% is too high. You round it off, it is 70%. So as we embark on this this Parliament, or the 11th Parliament, we need to be conscious that 70% of colleagues will always be victims because the constituents are not satisfied. So if you want to go to do a one-term, to be a one-term MP, then you do things the same way. But if you think it is a career you've started and then you need to give some service for 2, 3 terms, then you must take your job seriously.
Thank you. Sarah, your expectations of this parliament, and you can feel free to touch on comparing it to the last, especially as it ended.
Well, I think I won't differ much from what Honorable KATUNTU has just said, because the functions of Parliament are very clear in Article 79 of the Constitution. It is to make laws for the peace, development, order and good governance of Uganda. Article in Clause 3 mandates Parliament to promote constitutional democracy in Uganda. I know that Articles, 153 and 160 have other functions, the whole of Chapter 9. But there are other, the major function is really that, and then checks and balances to the executive. So if you compare with the just two indicators, promoting constitutional governance, it is through the last parliament that we saw the final remove of safeguards for peaceful transition of power in Uganda. But we also saw gross human rights violations in the last parliament, especially towards the end. And then, of course, the nature of elections in this country, because parliament derives its power from the people, as well as all other elected leaders of this country, even the unelected, including judiciary. So all the arms of government derive their power from the people. But how were the people treated? And how was that social contract made? The nature of elections, the human rights violations. So I expect this parliament to pay keen interest to the abuse of human rights and make sure that is properly checked, even if it requires suspension of budgets for the agencies of government that are violating the rights of the people. Then we need to look at the issue of finance, taxation, and public debt, and checking government expenditure. I know that the last parliament really did all they could. They did a lot of work. Even on human rights, they caused the closure of Narfenya, which was very notorious for gross human rights abuses in this country. But we need, I think, to take serious Article 160 that talks about public debt and how it's weighted against the consolidated fund and the people, and make sure that we check the borrowing appetite of this government and borrow only funds that are necessary and they should be utilized. Because as the government closed last month, our public debt, we had 1.7 trillion unspent funds that are borrowed, and we are paying interest on these funds. So I expect Parliament to pay in that aspect and save the country from drowning into further debt. We have, of course, the Parliament also closed at the time after signing the major oil contracts. So we hope that this Parliament will transact several businesses, checking the oil business, how it's going, the oil exploration business. But as we prepare to become a petrol state or petrol country, the last cabinet passed a resolution to reintroduce the amendment of Article 26 on compulsory acquisition of land without compensation, yes, and it's coming in this parliament. So, and I think really, I know that I started on public debt, but even if it requires borrowing specific money to resettle people that need to be shifted from regions where the oil pipeline is going to pass, where oil projects need to pass, I think we need to borrow that money. We should not create stateless persons within our country because of oil.
Okay. Honorable KABERUKA, you are part of the coming parliament, okay, the current parliament, and you were part of the parliament that just ended, the 10th parliament. When you came in the last election, you had certain expectations. Compare them to the start now, and whether you think that the prospects now are better.
Thank you, Charles, and viewers and colleagues. I think for me, when it comes to the expectation of 11th Parliament compared to the 10th Parliament, I always refer to the civil demands. When Sarah is talking, I take much interest because that represents the civil community, the civil society, and that's where we derive our mandate as by the Constitution, Article 1. And I think 10th Parliament tried its best in ensuring that the constitutional mandate of members of Parliament was done. I expect that 11th Parliament can do better, especially in being assertive, to have that assertiveness on executive, because it is the executive that brings business to Parliament. Honorable KATUNTU has mentioned that as we talk now, we can't do anything because much as we have not constituted our committees, yes, we also don't have government that brings business in Parliament. Because when I hear people say Parliament is failing this, no. When government brings business, that's when the people of Uganda through the legislative arm discuss that business to the interest of the communities. So I expect that the members of Parliament in the 11th Parliament, with our leadership that was elected, should be assertive enough to do much better to the people of Uganda, especially in dealing with corruption. The endemic corruption in Uganda that has because our moral fiber has really gone, and we need to restore hope in Ugandans, that at least people can live for the next generation. So this one is something that is cardinal to the members of Parliament, because it is a corruption that is causing lack of drugs in hospitals. It is corruption that is causing depleted roads. Our road infrastructure is, I don't know how much period should our roads, if we make a road and we borrow money to construct a road, how long should this road take Ugandans? Is it 5 years? So we need to deal with that. If it is the oil we're talking about, the money we are borrowing should be used to help Ugandans in real terms, not necessarily borrowing for the sake, and then we look at we find tomorrow our posterities are crying. We need also to deal with the issue of the capital flight. Colleagues and Ugandans viewing this program, we are having a debt burden, but when we get borrowed funds, the same money goes back. The local economy, at least part of it remain in Uganda. That's when we can translate these borrowed funds into a propelling entity to propel the economy. Because when you talk about 68% of Ugandans not being in the money economy, it is partly that. Because I was watching the Chinese, when you look at the Exim Bank, the Exim loan we borrowed to work on power. it is a Chinese company that is working with this power, and they have brought Chinese to also subcontract, leaving Ugandans watching, and this hell of money is going back. So until the parliament also asserts itself to say, no, this one, any loan that we are taking should be in such parameters that would help Ugandans to benefit from this loan. So I expect that together with the leadership of the parliament that has been put in place, we need to do much more to help our people.
Okay. I have seen GGOOBI and Margaret Muhanga online. GGOOBI, I need you first on the issue of capital flight. And GGOOBI, can you hear me?
I can hear you very well, Charles.
Thanks. Good to see you. Good evening, and it's good that you didn't come because we now have ample social distancing in the studio here. I know you feared to come for different reasons, but that's okay. GGOOBI, I want to start you on your thoughts about and hope in the new parliament. From a point that KABERUKA has just left us at, the issue of local content and proposing that we can give conditions for money, the large amounts of money that we borrow, that a certain percentage should remain within our economy in order to realize the benefit. Is that a possible proposal? Is that a proposal that is feasible? How do you think we should do it?
Thank you, and good evening to the leaders there in the studios, and also to Margaret. It's good to see her back on the panel. Number one, I think the president already cut out the work for the 11th Parliament by emphasizing the issue of socioeconomic transformation. Although we tend to reduce it to only, fighting subsistence, it was actually encompassing all of those aspects that Honorable KABERUKA and Sarah have been talking about. Particularly on the issue of capital flight, or the fact is that we're not taking full advantage of the resources that we borrow. I would think that this goes with the domesticating our GDP, domesticating our economic activities generally. Our GDP is mainly produced by farms that are owned by foreigners. That one we need to take a note of it. A big chunk of the main kind of enterprises or sectors which have been the fastest growing, look at telecom sector, look at large-scale manufacturing, look at also large-scale retail and wholesale, these big ShopRite and Game, and commercial banks, finance, and the fuel industry, and so on. Most of those are the top GDP contributors, because even when you look at their contribution to our tax register or tax revenue, it's also quite massive. And therefore, that means the proceeds which come out of these businesses go back to their owners. And Ugandans pick just a few peanuts here and there in terms of those few are employed, and of course the tax revenue they pay, and the larger multiplier effect they contribute. But we need to ensure that this economy is domesticated much also highly. We need to work on the issue of local content beyond just rhetoric by building capacity of the local or indigenous entrepreneurs and companies to partake in these activities which government borrow for, because we have limited capacity in construction, we have limited capacity in logistics, and so on and so forth. That one goes without saying. So, you know, politics is over-consuming Uganda's effort and time. And yet, you know, politics, as I've already told you, will never work in the way some people hope it is supposed to work, in a structure which is meant for chaos. For example, the way our people earn livelihood, the way our people live their lives, the way for example, the household incomes have failed to grow, because some of us will look at these numbers on a daily basis. We look at the household income today in terms of the average per capita income in Uganda being hovering around 800 per person. It's more or less in where incomes which were earning in the 90s. So there is need for us to take that message of the president very seriously. For the 11th Parliament, the work is already cut out. Make sure that the 78% of Ugandans who are stuck in livelihoods meant only for their survival can be actually employed meaningfully. And this requires, of course, Parliament to play its role in the way it appropriates money, in the way it monitors government projects, in the way it ensures that corruption, which Honorable KABERUKA also talked about, is addressed. It's a big animal, or rather elephant in the room. We need to see that the productivity levels of people is improved. So how is the budget going to be structured in the next 5 years is going to be so critical, because we have built the foundation, as the president said, on infrastructure. But you see, infrastructure alone cannot create jobs. You have to utilize it in order to create the jobs. So in that way, how do we allocate resources to enhance productivity? Because productivity in Uganda is still very low. We have one of the lowest output per farmer in the world. We have the lowest output per manufacturing worker in the region. These numbers do not look good for us going forward. We need to change them. We need to see a reduction in the concentration of people in agriculture. Because land is not expanding, and yet the people are growing every day. So we must create, therefore, off the farm enterprises, activities which are going to employ people productively. And to me, this is where the emphasis needs to be. Once you do that and get many of these younger people, for example, those who graduated earlier last week, and they get productive jobs, they start off their lives in a way which is decent, then you will see now decent people coming to politics, and also politics, the debates will change. Politics looks very different. People are employed differently, and the local content aspect is, of course, a very critical one.
Thank you so much, GGOOBI. Honorable Margaret, you need to come in at this point. Over-politicking has been mentioned by now two people, Honorable KATUNTU and GGOOBI, and then the issue of corruption has been mentioned by the panelists here. Do you think that in your expectation of this parliament, do you think that it has the capacity? From just looking at its composition, they are still new, but I'm sure you know a number by now within the last few months since the election. Do you think it has that capacity to fight corruption, which is a huge, huge problem in this country?
Thank you, Charles, for that question. You see, we need to move beyond rhetoric. Corruption in Uganda is endemic. It is a vicious circle. Everyone is involved. Even those employed to fight corruption along the way get corrupted. So it's just a moral fiber that we need to clean in this country. And also, if we wield the whip and use it correctly, corruption can reduce, because it is known where corruption takes place.
Hello, Margaret. Hello. I think the network. I think the network is causing some problems. But let me come back to the studio. And at this point, I usually encourage now. Let's interact on the issues. And feel free to interject where you want to throw in, so that we have a free engagement. Margaret will join us shortly, but she mentions corruption, and two things that interest me in what she says. One, that corruption is a vicious cycle, and that we know where corruption talk comes from. Of course, I don't know. I really wanted to hear that from her. But that it is a vicious cycle is a good one that we need to discuss. And the reason I'm saying that, and having a low hope or expectation in this parliament fighting corruption, you know, in this campaign that has just ended, I have information that during the SEC discussion, the president talked about all the groups, the winners and the losers in this election and their groups, you know, distributing money to buy votes from MPs. And then an ordinary Ugandan out there, I have seen messages wondering, is this the parliament that is going to fight corruption, that we have interest and prospects in to fight corruption? Honorable Abdu Katuntu, what's your take about such dynamics of corruption in our country, when the vanguards of rule of law are the ones now being fingered for involving themselves in these things?
I think Ramathan puts it quite aptly. Corruption is the biggest elephant in the room. I have had the opportunity to chair 2 oversight parliamentary committees. The Local Government Accounts Committee of Parliament, which I did for 2.5 years, and then the Committee on Commissions, Statutory Authority and State Enterprises, which I also did for 3 years. And I can tell you, it's a very, very big problem. Until the country makes it so painful to any person who puts his hand in the public till, the issue of corruption will always be there. You need to make it very, very expensive, such that the opportunity cost is so high and nobody can dare. But, you know, corruption, first of all, yes, the effects are massive, but it's like any other crime. It's not easy to have a crime-free community or society. You will always have thieves. Actually, when you say corruption, you are rebaptizing it. It is a theft. It is theft of public resources. Of course, there is even other areas where it is not even stealing public resources. But whether you are stealing public time, whether you are stealing resources, whether somebody is facilitating you, as they call it, but there is nothing like first station. They are corrupting you to do a particular thing which ought to be done, and therefore it becomes expensive. People are wasting money on non-productive areas because they are bribing officers of government. And if you go to, you must identify which areas, in my view, you have to look at what they call procurement. Big monies are lost during these procurement processes. Because eventually the people who give out these contracts, or you call them people who give out the tenders, they spend more than they should be spending in the bidding process. If this is a road of $150 million, but he has spent $15 million. So the quality of the road will be less than the money which has been paid, because he has to recoup the $15 million. Even if you are to buy an equipment, and a government equipment, and you must now quote the price. The corrupt component is also within that price. So ordinarily, even if you, like I can say camera like this, which we are looking into, it is costing government, call it $500,000. But if the person supposed to take the decision to give out the contract, the supplier picks $50,000, already 10% is gone. And the camera becomes, which should have been $450,000, it is now $550. So it's a very, very big problem. And let me tell you, even at the local government level, because they have seen for us in Kampala doing this thing and singing about it and so on, now even at the local government level, it is the same. I moved all over this country, and my brother here, KABERUKA, should know the sort of money that goes down to the local governments for purposes of service delivery. How many of those projects do we have value for money? Even if you're going to build a small health center, there is a problem there. Even if you are going to do culverts of a swamp, there is a problem there. And maybe Margaret is right, this thing is endemic. We're just moving in circles and circles. And I don't think that purification of anti-corruption agencies will work. It can't work. You know, you create this one, tomorrow we create another one, the other day we create another one, and then we're all spending money. Because you're wasting money. What we have to do, even if we have one anti-corruption agency, facilitate it, make sure they account for the money we are paying them for the work they are doing, then we can fight corruption. Now, how do we relate that to the 11th Parliament? One, our leaders who are appointing committees of Parliament that are going to oversee should realize that you need people with the capacity. And the capacity means you must know what you are doing, but capacity also means integrity. Both. So that, you know, if you have a chairperson of the committee of oversight, and it's supposed to be making money from that committee, they will not fight corruption. You just need to have a committee and you say, okay, this is my time. What did I do as chairperson of the committee? Do you have it? Is there anything to show? Obviously, we also have another problem of, you see, these corrupt people eventually gang up. And when they gang up, they fight back. And the only thing they can do is to discredit those who are fighting corruption, that you are not any different from us after all. So you find that now these guys, you start now looking at yourselves, you can't do anything. They're also throwing mud, because you see, that is how the mafia world works. They will not allow you to do a thorough job without trying to fight back. And they also recruit, including recruiting the press.
Yeah.
They recruit the press too. So you find a guy who is at the vanguard of fighting corruption, and they are busy throwing mud at him, even accusing him of corruption. so that he either loses morale or whatever he does, nobody realizes that he's actually doing a great job. So these are the sort of challenges, and people who are going to take over those committees should realize that the public's expectation is so high. The public is fed up with corruption. And the public is sometimes fed up with Parliament because it does not see real results. Then I think it was like the retired Just Katus talking about crocodiles and tilapias, big fish, and so on. The public
was that in the judgment against late Cheye?
Yes. So the public expects you to get the big fish, the really big fish. Sometimes we are more concentrating on these macareres, sardines, mukene, a little bit of mukene, and so on. And yet, where the problem is, it has not been addressed.
The sharks, the whales.
The sharks, the whales. Let me give you an example. When I took over the chairperson's office of Committee on COSASE, I looked at the different entities of government which I was overseeing, and I looked at their budget. And I realized where there is big money, there is big theft. That's how I went for UNRWA. I asked, and good enough, in Kajina, I had a partner because she was also new there.
Yeah.
So we worked closer to see what reforms we needed.
And likes to fight corruption.
Yes, and she wants to. And a lot of work and so on. You remember, there is no parliamentary committee that has ever recovered money from thieves. It was only my committee.
How much was that you recovered?
Over $42 million. Money stolen and even taken out of this country. It is not even under the Inspectorate of Government, IGG. Nobody has ever recovered that sort of money. But I was focused. I knew where the problem was, and I had the capacity. Who can recover money which has even left this country? Nobody has ever done it. We set a precedent. But at that time, when I had assumed that office, we had formed a consortium between parliamentary committees, the IGG's office, the PPDA office, the Anti-Corruption Court, and we are being coordinated by a certain project called SUGA, and the DPP's office. And you know, we had a little bit of agenda, including changing the law to recover what we call proceeds of crime, how we can trace proceeds of crime. Then all of a sudden, we are thrown in disarray because the politics came in. They started us this, and so on. So really, what we have to do is, yes, the mafias, but let me tell you, my brother and Charles, the corrupt people are so powerful, and they are so influential. They'll go to where it matters, and they say that one is a bad fellow, is the stumbling block. They'll do that, and they will attack, and viciously. They will attack and viciously. So as this parliament goes into real business, they should keep that in mind.
Okay.
About what my brother is talking about, local content and so on, yes, but we put a law in place. For example, under the oil and gas sector, the local content is above 50%. We fought
Did you
for...
put 50 or 40?
No, it's 50, 55. Yeah, it's about 50%. Let me tell you, we fought it with these giant oil companies. And they were telling us we have no capacity, we can't do it. Said, no, let's put it there and create capacity.
Yeah.
Let us put it there and create capacities. That's when we eventually got these colleges taking off, even the agreements to say we put some money here for training and so on. So we have, and you know, some people, they talk about it and they don't realize that we put our heads to the right things which can develop this country.
Okay.
That there is a country which is giving a specific percentage, say, in the oil and gas sector, this is what we want. Because we had benchmarked.
But is it working? That's another issue. Is it working? There is making a good law, which is synonymous with Uganda.
Yes.
But there is implementing or enforcing that law to the latter. Are the oil companies recruiting the 54%? Are they, because I understand from your discussions, when you had that discussion, I followed bits of it.
I opened it up.
Yes. And one of the things you said, the 54 must apply across board in terms of giving out jobs, giving out tenders, buying, you know, the services and all that. Is it working?
I think they are trying to move towards that. They are trying. But that depends also on the committees of parliament which oversee, to call them and ask the correct questions. But even the public is not putting pressure on committees of parliament to be asking those questions. Instead, we get some small thing and we are interested in that one, and you find a committee of parliament spending a whole week on something very minor. That's what I think the challenge this parliament should be living up to tackle the real things that affect the economy.
Good.
And as I end, I think the leadership of the political parties, the NRM and the National Unity Platform, should really do a favor to this country, and they pick competent people to run the committees of parliament.
Okay. We will be touching on that definitely, and I think we need to focus on those issues of capabilities, competencies, because, and I need us also in the course of this discussion to touch on the capacity of the opposition to oversight, because the opposition constitutionally, I think, has 4 major committees of accountability that they are supposed to oversee and superintend over. Of course, in addition to the 5th, which is the leader of opposition, who is the alternative, supposed to provide the alternative policy. But before we came to Abdu, we had lost Margaret, Honorable Margaret.
Yes, I'm back.
I think
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well, very clearly.
Okay.
Good. I wanted to pick your mind. You had talked about the corruption being a cycle, and you had talked about, I had wanted to challenge you. You said something that was incomplete, that of course we know where the corruption is. And I was saying, I don't know.
You don't know where the corruption is?
I don't know. And if I don't know at a level of sitting
Seriously?
here as a moderator, then many more Ugandans don't know.
Now, the highest corruption in this country is around the civil service. The people who really sign for this money. And for whatever contract, somebody mentioned a contract where people ask for a percentage. Someone, I won't mention the name, but one of the chief executives in this country told me when she or he joined some organization, he found that there was a lot of money given in this organization to do so much work, but the top people would ask for like 10% of whatever that work was going to cost. And then 10% is shared just among the civil servants. But you see, Ugandans concentrate so much on politicians who have totally no access to any man of government. If all the civil society and those who are faulting government for having failed to wipe out corruption should actually turn their guns onto the very people who sign on these checks and vouchers for payment. Now, I have a lot of hope in this parish model that the NRM wants to implement in these 5 years. Because what it says is that they will take the money directly to the beneficiaries. Because money has been getting lost along the way, and it doesn't reach the very beneficiaries it intends to help get out of poverty. Because that 68%, I think it has gone a little over to about 64 people who are not in the money economy, who needs to be jump-started so that they can earn, instead of just living from hand to mouth, which the president calls Korekida Kionga in some language in the East, Bugweri, that you're just working for your stomach, but you're not earning anything. Now, this money is meant to go to help people at a parish level. And now government is going to take it to the very enterprises that have been selected by the CDOs. Instead of putting their money at the district to the sub-counties, sub-counties they have to what? So along the way, money exchanges hands, and the very enterprises that it should support do not get this money. And then there was this other network of people who go and open some fake enterprises and accounts, and once the money gets there, the fake beneficiaries go and pick it. And Charles, I can tell you, the mafia that is talked about in this country are not even in government. People shock you in town. You meet a person who doesn't work anywhere, but has a lot of contacts in that ministry or department. Then you ask, what do you do? They're just cutting deals every day with some chief executives or accountants or auditors. They always have somebody they will deal with in these ministries. They are not working anywhere. There's a payment coming out of like Ministry of Constitutional Affairs or Attorney General's chambers. You meet a lay person in town and he tells you, we are going to pay so and so. You and who? You see that they are very powerful people. They're really powerful mafias who have money to bribe anybody to do anything. And then you wonder, if all this is happening under our noses, what exactly are we doing to audit these very people? You see, when we were in the 8th Parliament, I think we passed a law of illicit enrichment. This means that even if somebody has his property, you need to ask him how he acquired that property. Somebody earning 1.5 million in some ministry has 20 houses in Kampala. He does not have a potato garden, not even a kiosk. So how do they amass that wealth? Yet to find people who earn well, like politicians, those MPs that people think earn well, are so broke. As we talk today, every MP who failed an election is selling all their properties. Be it ministers, it is so sad that we turn our guns onto these people and then forget the real people who have their money. We need to now address the fourth estate. Because I worked in the fourth estate for 9 years. But I remember even during my time, we were turning all our guns to politicians. Then we forget where the real people who handle government money, who have access to it, who are paying each and everybody. The minister doesn't pay anybody. Where are they getting all this wealth?
Margaret.
Yes.
I think the reason is that the buck starts and ends with the politicians. Why? Because we are the one who supervise the technocrats. It's our job. So if we fail in our job, we can't run away from the responsibility. Say, no, after all, these are the people stealing. That's why the public, because these guys entrusted us with power and authority, including recruiting these very civil servants. We do it. After we put all that in place, we can now not blame those people because we'll be failing in our job.
Not blaming them, but having them to account. You see, illicit enrichment is having you to account for the property vis-a-vis the salary you earn.
Honorable Margaret.
Yes.
I think Honorable KATUNTU is making an important point. That whereas the civil servant can do their mischief and loot the public coffers, whereas there is that person who is a dealer and cuts a deal, is moving in the corridors, and we agree with you on that. First of all, the dealer is a normal, ordinary, private Ugandan, and you as a politician is the one that we have put in place to ensure that our monies are safe, because you have that oversight function to perform. And you actually represent us. So the buck falls, you know, with you as the politician, as the MP, as the parliament.
Maybe to answer your question or to allay your fears, I was talking about the institutions directly involved. For us, we can do our oversight and hand over these people. We will arrest them but hand over to the police. The next year, they're back in their homes and the case was dismissed or they won the case. So that's where Parliament will stop. Parliament has powers of the High Court, but they will not try anybody. They have no prosecutors. You've got to go back to the prosecutors of government. And that's where our role stops. Nonetheless, I got a lot of hope. There are more MPs now, meaning they are going to do more work, right? The constituencies that were one constituency, now they have 2 MPs who can go and do the oversight right on the ground and see that this money that was sent for roads in this sub-county, has the money done anything that is visible on the ground? Look at some scenario which I was reading recently. Actually, even the president had written about it. That a private person constructing a primary school may use about 30 million per classroom to construct one classroom. But when it is a local government, it's about 50 million. When it comes to the central government, it's about 90 million. How come a private person is constructing at less than the government contracting people? So that's where all the hemorrhage goes. Government money is taken in such ways that everybody can see. But where Parliament has powers, but it has where it stops. So other arms of government who can prosecute, the IGG, the police, the courts take over. And Parliament cannot overturn a court ruling.
Okay.
If court rules that the person has no illicit enrichment, he had some other businesses he was doing alongside his job, you won't do nothing about it.
Okay.
So the hope that we have is that the members of Parliament now, who will sit on these oversight committees, put in the effort to follow every money to the latter. Because we are the ones who appropriate this money. And also to appropriate in sectors that can make more money. You know, there are sectors like tourism. They get very little money, and yet tourism is a heavy earner for this government.
It is the highest
high earners for this government in terms of dollars is tourism. We need more tourism roads. We need more social amenities. And these tourist attractions, you go to some place, there is no electricity, but this is where tourism is based. And then the people don't want to invest where they cannot find easy access to these tourism areas.
Okay.
We need better roads there. We need all the social amenities to be put in place by government. And that's the work of us members of Parliament on the committee level of trade, because trade handles also Ministry of Tourism.
Okay, thanks, Honorable Margaret. We will be coming back. I need us to take a quick break right now. And when we come back, I will be bringing in Sarah and Honorable KABERUKA, and we need to widen the debate on the capacity. We need to look at, we need to take a glimpse into whether or not the opposition and civil society have capacity. And Sarah, you need to prepare to respond to some of those issues. But let's take a break right now and we'll be back.
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Central Points when you deposit, send, and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go, MTN.
Echa COVID-19 chija kugwa. If we get vaccinated now, observe social distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly. Together we can defeat this enemy.
What does it mean to be closer together? It's taking the last bus home for a surprise visit. Closer together is strangers finding a connection. It's bringing home something much more than a box. It's the warmth of home, or the beginning of something new. There's magic in sharing the things that we love, because it's those things that bring us close together.
Welcome back from the break. This is Behind the Headlines, and we are looking at the prospects of the 11th Parliament. And the question is, or the puzzle is, will it live up to the national expectations? We are asking ourselves, what are those expectations? What are those things that the public is thinking about? And the discussion we have in the studio, the discussants rather, we have Honorable KABERUKA, Kinkizi West MP, we have Honorable KATUNTU, Bugweri County MP, we have Councillor Sarah BIREETE, who is Executive Director of the Center for Constitutional Governance, a civil society organization. Joining us through Zoom, we have RAMATHAN GGOOBI, a lecturer at Makerere University Business School, and Honorable Margaret Muhanga, who is MP for one of the constituencies in the new Fort Portal city. And online, if you want to join the discussion, hashtag is UBCBehindTheheadlines. Hashtag UBCBehindTheheadlines. And we are also streaming live via Facebook and YouTube. On Facebook, UBC TV, that's on Facebook. And then on UBC Television, through UBC Television, which is on YouTube. Join in the discussion, and we are discussing a number of issues within Parliament and taking a look at whether or not the 11th Parliament that has just started will live up to the national. The context that we need to bring in at this point, the new Speaker of Parliament, the Honorable Jacob Oulanyah, has said that the new Parliament should focus on the national interest above all other considerations, and there must be work. Work has got to be done. And that is the spirit in which this discussion is being had. Let me bring in Sarah BIREETE at this point. Viewer, by the way, if you want to join the discussion, send your question or comment. I will be shortly reading them as the discussion goes on all issues related to the work of Parliament, and we will be answering them or making comments on them. Sarah, there is the question of capacity that Honorable KATUNTU raised. Capacity, competence. Right now, I know that Honorable Oulanyah is putting together now to ensure that structures of parliament, committees, and parliament works most through committees. They do the bulk of the job. They are now working on putting together committees, appointment committees, and all these other standing committees, and even sessional. Do you trust that, let's start with the opposition that we know is in charge of certain 4 committees, COSASE, local government accounts, PAC, and then government assurance, and then their leader of opposition and supposed to provide alternative policies and checks and balances. Do you think that the current opposition, as we know it, has the capacity and competence to do the work?
Well, Charles, opposition is now led by NUP, but they are not the only opposition. They have other members from FDC, DP, JEMA, and I think People's Progressive Party also has an MP.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and the independent MPs who are, opposition leaning. I think it's a total of 109 MPs who are on a opposition party ticket, and then a total of 120, including those independents that are opposition leaning. They have the capacity. Honorable KATUNTU is here, is one of them. They are seasoned opposition leaders in the House, the MPs that have been there for 1, 2, 3 terms. There are those that have joined, and they have several competencies. The challenge with opposition is ability to quickly build consensus and set their legislative agenda as the government in waiting. Going by what happened in Kororo, I think there was no consensus on on how to vote, at least for the opposition candidates, how we saw them, others how they voted, and the dynamics how they changed. So we cannot even use that to read the mood of how opposition is going to act in the House. I hope that in a few days, the National Unity Platform will unveil the leader of opposition and the shadow cabinet. That should give us a guide on how they want to act as the government in waiting, and in how they will process their legislative agenda. Of course, a leader of government business is a member of the business committee, and they participate in setting the business agenda of parliament. But when it comes to individual capacities I think let's give them a benefit of the doubt, especially the new party that has come in. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt and assess them on their merits, and merits as they perform in office. Because now we shall just be, second guessing what they are likely to do or not to do. But in terms of having qualified people in the House, especially on the opposition side, I am confident that we have them, and one of them is here with us.
Okay.
Capacities of civil society and the fight against corruption.
And also you can add, talking of civil society and parliament, you can add what is your link to parliament or even through opposition. Do you have any to build their capacity to coordinate and to fight corruption, to oversight?
Well, we work with several committees of parliament. Each of the civil society organizations works with their line committees in terms of the work they are doing. And we normally work hand in hand, including on policy changes, including on consultations with the people. So we work closely with Parliament and all committees of Parliament, depending on the thematic areas of our work and the work being handled by the committees.
And they have been doing very well. And let me give you an example, Charles. When we are enacting the oil and gas legislation, it was civil society.
Yes.
They really did their best in building capacity, educating us, including getting resource persons from the best universities in this world here, flying in them in here. And I'm telling you, when you look at those bills, you know, the down, mid, and upper stream laws. When they came here, we really redid them. Yeah. Parliament read them almost like 60%. And we came out with what I think is one of the best laws regarding that sector. So, yes, civil society, I've been a beneficiary of civil society. You know, they attend work, they organize workshops, seminars, conferences, locally here. The only problem, members of parliament not taking some of these things seriously. If it's a workshop in Munyonyo, thinks it is a holiday out, and so on. You know, so, but you see, they have got a lot of, you know, they are putting in resources. Yeah. They are paying resource persons, well-educated people who have prepared papers, and they do their work, the civil society work, they do it, yes. Depending on, as he says, a particular areas of their interest. If it's about constitutionalism and good governance, then these people come in. Yeah. If it's about environment, then there are several civil society organizations involved in protection of the national environment, and so on. They did so much. You remember the Save Mavira campaign? Yeah. Campaign? Yeah. Civil society was involved. Yeah. So they do very well, actually, they do. But it will depend on us. It yes. really depends on us, the members of parliament, to take our job seriously.
Okay. Yes, maybe as I conclude, yeah. I want to mention here, I know our colleagues working on the work on corruption, the Anti-Corruption Coalition of Uganda, Action Aid, NGO Forum, and several other organizations. They are relaunching the Black Monday newsletter and Black Monday movement.
Okay. Honorable KABERUKA is laughing. But Honorable, maybe you can, as you start from where you're laughing and what you're laughing about, the issue of, the mention has been made of too much politicking. I needed us to sort that out from, you know, do you think that it is possible that the next parliament, I mean this current parliament that has just started work, can work other than, you know, work politics and politicking to make money from really what's really nothing? Do you think it is possible?
Yeah, it is possible, Charles. And I have confidence in Ugandans because Parliament is a platform of Ugandans. Ugandans have elected their best to defend them. The challenge is that when Parliament processes something, it is not the one that implements it. And I want to be categorical here. I heard the Honorable Muhanga was talking about civil servants. We are going for the, because the Honorable KATUNTU talked of the big fish. But here we are trying to dodge going for the civil servants. You heard what happened in the COVID when Parliament allocated money to buy food for the people of Uganda. I don't think we are fit to be talking about these civil servants. Yes, they are, but we are the ones who give them jobs. We are the ones who supervise them. I want to say that Ugandan corruption will go when we want. When we want the corruption in Uganda should go, it will go. Because today, corruption is part of life. Today, actually, when you are not corrupt, you are fault. You hinted on the recent election that we have just concluded. Did you cite any corruption element? Because I would define corruption as any form of dishonesty or criminal offense undertaken by a person or institution, either to gate, illicit benefit,
and advantage,
or using your office to gain privately
personal
at
advantage.
the chagrin of the society.
Yeah.
If you do anything dishonestly, you are already planting corruption.
Yeah.
Charles, let's not run away from the fact that when Kony invaded Uganda and the decision was made that Kony must go, Kony ran away. I am putting it in the court of the president. If the president wants corruption to go, tomorrow it will disappear. Because we can talk, but the person who has the power to control. Charles, the other day, we spent money, we allocated the money to the land commission, it's called what?
Land fund.
No, this Makerere.
The Commission of Inquiry into Land.
Commission of Inquiry.
Mm.
Have we, do you know where the report is? Have we implemented, what have we implemented on that report? We have KATUNTU committee, COSASI, produced the report. Where is it? So the issue is not about whether Parliament is, because for us we are going to do our work. And what we do is to inform the implementer. You implement. So in 2017 I was in Tanzania. So we were in Tanzania and some buildings had been deserted, which were partial construction. So I was asking, what happened to these buildings? They said, the thieves were caught by Magufuli. The thieves were caught. And some people were casting Magufuli. After 2 years, he became what? A darling, because people started benefiting from, there's what he called the proceeds of corruption. When the proceeds of corruption are amalgamated, they can help this economy to grow. But let me tell you, we can talk much, because if you are a minister who has been in a corruption case, in a corruption scandal, why should you come back and be given a ministerial position? And today, the other day I listened to the president when he was giving his speech.
In Kololo?
In Kololo.
On Monday?
On Monday. Said, the 200 I had them. The 200 I had what? How did he have the 200? How did he have them? How? So we must walk the talk. If we can't walk the talk, let's not bother the wananchi, because we have very cosmetic statements we are making, but it's very difficult for us to walk by what we are saying. So until that time, when we say we want to deal with corruption will disappear in thin air. Okay. I want to say that us, as members of Parliament, as I started saying, I say that we need to assert ourselves, continue doing our work without looking at who is affected. But I want to tell you, they are going to deal with you. Because when, I remember when the KATUNTU's committee was doing very good work, you'd find people grumbling, this KATUNTU, it became a problem. People of responsibility, responsible people, who would be saying, who would be energizing KATUNTU. Now, it is at this time when I heard the speech of the speaker now, Right Honorable Jacob, I said maybe we are going to have something. Let me hope. But let me tell you, when you come by corruption, if any MP came by corruption, don't think he's going to fight what? Corruption. So we need to be clean before we start advocating for cleanliness. Are you clean? So it is up to now, you ask the MPs to check ourselves. Because when we talk of opposition, this actually there's something KATUNTU we need to deal with. And I am NRM. And NRM party has good virtues and values that if we could espouse them and practice them, the country would be good for the people.
Yeah.
There is Honorable Cooper brought a proposal to change the rules on these oversight committees. You find every other day we create a municipality. You create town councils. We have urban councils, we have local government. How many districts now?
146.
146.
Yeah.
So if you are a local government and local government accounts committee, to look into the document of from Muwanga, from the Auditor General, of 146 districts, then sub-counties, then you go to municipalities, you go to town councils, you cannot manage that.
Not possible in a year.
So the proposal was, if we could have districts and sub-counties, a committee over that, then we have urban, a committee also overseeing the urban.
And town councils.
Yes, urban municipalities and town councils. Their local government would be checked thoroughly.
But can't you have those committees?
I want to tell you what happened.
I
want to tell you what happened.
Yes.
The man brings a very good proposal. And someone will come and says, you know, these are opposition committees, so when we increase them, now, are you working for Uganda? And then you cause a crisis. You know, opposition want to take committees, want to take more committees, but they are there to check
those entities,
you know, to bring quality for Uganda.
And you know, my brother, look here. You see, these are opposition-led, but actually the majority are NRM. And you know, in those committees, at the end of the day, we work through numbers.
Yes.
Voting is done. You have to.
Here, decisions are taken by numbers. They can even overrule what?
Exactly.
They're on the chair. So it
defeats my understanding when somebody says is NRM, but is fighting to create a committee on districts and urban sectors to create a good environment for the parliament to check and find out what is happening there. But you are saying no. There, I doubt. Now, until we reach at that point where we are saying we are working for the people of Uganda, because the party, I have already said it, I don't know, a party called NRM, they are NRM. Those are 3 letters.
Words.
UPC, 3 letters.
Oh, the letter.
FDC, 3 letters. They don't drink, they don't eat, they don't think. But someone uses that thing amorphously and says this one and kills the whole country. So I think at that point where MPs will stand and say, we want to deal with the vice of corruption decisively, that's when we can say we can make a contribution. But when we bring all of that nonsense of saying these committees, because COSASE, how many entities do you handle? We have central.
You know, there are commissions and statutory authorities, state enterprises.
There are many.
There are 126.
There are many.
In my term, I think I only handled less than 40.
Honorable Cooper brought a proposal that we categorize them. We have another committee.
Do you have a window of bringing them back again, that proposal?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because how committees are created by the rules.
Do you have a leeway of presenting it? I'm sure he watches this program. That Honorable Jacob now a new blood, and of course he was part of the commission, the past commission, but now that he's the speaker himself, can you present it and say we had this presentation proposal, but it didn't pass? Do you think we should present it again because we'll think it is a good idea?
We went to Entebbe to process those rules. Then the calls came from somewhere. You know, because the chair of the rules is the NRM. No, don't do that. Don't do that. That is being myopic. I'm sorry to say that. To use that because the country is beyond that. We should look at a bigger picture of this nation other than looking at this peculiar and petty things. I want to say about corruption that actually, Honorable Muhanga, we need to deal with ourselves first. Let's deal with ourselves. The civil servants who are there are the ones who make us money, and we approve. So when we approve, you cannot eat your cake and demand it. I was the chairperson of finance in KANUNGU district local government. So we allocated 19 million and certain carload of 3 kilometers. It was supposed to be in the first quarter. It was not done. The second quarter, it was not done. But I found out that they even issued the certificate of completion. I got information.
Before it was done.
Before even a tractor could reach there. So I am the first person, Honorable Adolphe Mwesige, was the Minister of Local Government. I had to petition to the Minister of Local Government, and it is from that petition that the Minister of Local Government wrote a circular to all local governments for the councillors to monitor government projects. Because I wrote to COW that my committee wanted to go and monitor. He wrote to me that the monitoring was a preserve of the executive. You get me?
Yeah.
So I wrote to I appealed to the Minister of Local Government. I had spent a week in Kampala. But from that letter, all districts of Uganda got a circular that councillors, the cardinal role of councillors is to monitor government projects.
Good.
But now it is the letter of the minister I took to KANUNGU. I said I want to go to monitor. They had to give me a vehicle and the team to go and monitor. Reaching on the road, there was no road. So the man said, no, it is going to be in first quarter. I said, this is the certificate of completion signed by you. So they had to take me. A councillor earning 200,000 was given 5 million. If I had taken that 5 million, I wouldn't have caused that all to be done. So let's not talk about the civil servant. Yes, because they bribed me with 5 million, I said, fine. This 5 million, you also take it, add another money, and work on the road. They had to go to Centenary and got a loan. I said, I'm the chairman of finance. You cannot get other money from the KANUNGU local government to work on the road. Go and get money from wherever you want. Otherwise, I'm going to go to court. So that point people saw me as a, some people are saying, James, refusing 5 million? But here I am a member of parliament from a council of the district.
You were rewarded.
So I want to tell you, colleagues and the viewers, let's not lament.
Yeah.
Let's get out of rhetoric. Let's go to the action-oriented work.
It's possible.
It's possible. Sarah, and then I'll bring in GGOOBI.
Yes, I want to say something in support of what Honorable has just said. You know, we need to reconstruct our leadership from the leadership of privilege to the service leadership. Because what he's saying, and majority of people, they just look at their own privileges. They don't look at serving the ordinary person. And you can look, take an example of how our leaders treat citizens on the roads. Privileged people who are not even entitled to lead the cars, people, the way they drive on the road, throwing citizens on the roadside. That is the nature of leadership we have in this country, and it needs to change.
Responsible leadership, servant leadership. GGOOBI, you have heard the politicians. Mr. GGOOBI.
Yes.
You have heard the politicians, exchanging on what needs to be done. I have enjoyed the discussions on the nature of corruption and how it must be fought. And what's your take on that as the new parliament start work?
Thank you, Charles. First, we need to know that corruption has moved from being a principal agent problem, which it used to be, where the principal, who is the citizen of Uganda, could not easily monitor the people they give their mandate to work on their issues, like politicians and bureaucrats, to see that they are not corrupt. It has moved from there to now a collective action problem. Collective action means that the politicians, the bureaucrats, as well as the citizens alike are corrupt. And because of that, we find that corruption has become an expected behavior in Uganda. That when you are actually not corrupt, you are an old man of now. And because of that, there is a new and very dangerous type of corruption which has emerged. The one which is fighting those old men out. It fights the good people who have refused to join the corruption cartel. And therefore, I would want to assure everybody that even the very politician and actually support what Honorable KABERUKA was talking about, even the politicians themselves are corrupt. Some of them. Not all of them, of course, some of them. In 2019, we did a study on implementation failure in Uganda. And we went around the entire government, private sector, civil society, academia, interviewing who is who almost in every of those areas. When we were interviewing the top bureaucrats in government, the accounting officers, we got a shock when several of them, yet they were not seated in the same room, they clearly indicated to us that a number of MPs were asking them to pay bribes to them in order to, number one, get bigger budgets appropriated to their agencies, or to get them off the, in other words, to squash the audit queries, if any existed. These are on record. A number of them are saying what was happening in Parliament. Therefore, it is something which we need to address squarely at this time, and I told the incoming Parliament when I got the opportunity to address them when they were in Changwazi, using research on where the corruption problem is and what are the practical avenues of addressing it.
Okay.
I know there are certain things I've had, like you guys were talking of civil society, you are talking of these anti-corruption agencies, the parliamentary committees and so on. Unfortunately, the research is showing that not only in Uganda, many of those entities don't work, don't fight corruption effectively. The only effective ways of fighting corruption have been documented in different parts of the world. Number one are specialized audits, which sometimes we call forensic audits and performance audits. They are effective in exposing corruption. Secondly, e-government, ensuring that you reduce the human interaction where there are huge monies involved. And also you trace transactions when they have taken place. E-government helps a lot, especially e-procurement. Also, we found effective budget tracking. If you get tools which can effectively track a budget where money has been allocated, for example, there is a gentleman who has put up an IT system which can track medicine, drugs from NMS to the patient who has been administered this medicine. Those are the things which can work. And then lastly, appointing women in trust demanding positions also works. Apparently, women were found to be less corrupt than men. Yeah. One reason, they tend to be risk averse, more risk averse than men. They are also brought with a lot of pressure, social pressure on them, that it is a taboo for a woman to steal. And they also don't have a lot of these old boy networks, which men tend to have against corruption. So these are some of the things which we need to take seriously and see how we can use research to inform the response to corruption. But these are the things civil society was found to be very ineffective in fighting corruption. The only civil society entity which was effective was the free and independent media, but also it is conditioned on having a strong judiciary. Those are the only avenues which can fight corruption.
Interesting. Margaret, I want to give you 2 minutes, Honorable Margaret, and then I come back to the studio and I want the public message and questions and comments to be brought on board. Given the quest for work in the national interest, but especially let's walk the talk. Let's not only keep rhetorical. Let's not keep by only good speeches which don't translate into anything. You are now, I consider you now a senior legislator, and you are in this new parliament. Do you think that that is something that you guys need to show the lead in? Your group, KABERUKA, Honorable KATUNTU here, that the new guys who are coming, most likely they are excited, they are going to be politicking. Can you take the lead and say, we need to get working immediately and stop the politics?
The thing is, when Honorable KABERUKA talked about the road, I want to go back to his issue of coming up to Kampala to meet the Minister of Local Government to have the matter sorted. Do you know that every LC1 chairman where the road has passed writes a letter certifying that the road is there? Now, Someone else, I think, has also, Dr. GGOOBI, has also talked about everybody being in it. Now, that chairperson who signs a letter and certifies that the road is there when it is nothing is as corrupt as the very person who took the contract and ate the money within the circle. Now, therefore, that's why I was telling you it's a vicious circle, it's entrenched, everybody's involved. Now, therefore, I want to tell these members of parliament, especially the new ones and their biggest number, each orientation meeting, I remember even the right honorable speaker, the outgoing speaker, used to use one word that please don't come to parliament to cut deals. KABERUKA is right. They are members of parliament to go to cut deals. They even blackmail here some industrialists here. Even a matter that was brought up to the NRM to discipline some NRM MPs who had requested for a bribe from some industrialists. I think it was to do with an industry being in a swamp or something like that. And so it is our moral fabric that is completely dead because they hunt for money for the sake of it. If you have 10 cars, so what? If you have 20 houses, so what? Will you live in 20 houses at the same time? Are you going to drive 2 cars at the same time? So the quest for money and, bragging resources. There's a man I met one time talking about every year he builds a new house and what. So I asked, where does he work? That UNRA, and he builds a house for 1 billion every year. How much is his salary? So when you listen to such stories, they are really disgusting. And people talk about them, it's as if go to the villages, people say, oh man, wait 2 years, just started working, but you already bridged the land cruiser. And then this person is glorified because he's very corrupt and comes to Kampala and steals more because people in the villages, even in the church, he's the one who sits in front, gives the highest tithe. So it's just in our own morals that we do not think about tomorrow or others. Because if you're given a responsibility to help other people get out of poverty, and you are not that poor, you have a roof on top of your head, your kids can go to school, what more do you want?
Okay, thanks a lot.
Why would you take money going to a very small organization in the village, 12 million, instead of giving it to them? These people sometimes are very organized, and they can use that money profitably. But the person at the top takes their money because he's in charge and there's nothing they can do about it. But if we really go back to our own conscience and ask ourselves, what is this that I'm doing? Maybe we are no longer Christians. I see in the church, priests have talked about Christians, that if you're all Christians in Uganda, 85% of the people are Christians, 15% are Muslims. Why can't you follow the Bible? Do not steal.
Okay.
Is this something very hard for somebody to do? Does anybody have to steal in order to be rich?
Apparently.
Charles, before we proceed,
There's something I wanted to comment on the parish model which was brought in by Honorable Mhanga. Yes, I cherish the parish model as an individual and a representative of Kinkizi West.
Yeah.
I feel the parish model would be the best way to reach the people. But also it is also corruption. To have 45 trillion budget and you give less than 1% to the parish model, that's also corruption.
They are giving, is it 40 billion?
40 billion is less than 1% of our budget. So if we were really to change the economy through the parish model, would you use 1%, less than 1%?
That is not 1. It is 0.
I'm saying less than 1%. 0.10 about there.
So it is important that we reflect on this parish model.
Okay.
We put it in the right context, because it is also not good to supply air, and then we say, then we continue saying we are people, we have now changed from this, we are getting to parish model now, when it is air supply.
Okay, good. That's important. And as we move closer towards the budget and the State of Nation address, we'll definitely discuss. The parish model is one of the critical interventions of government towards transforming lives that we are going to be discussing. But let me quickly run through some of the messages. Tinker says, Honorable Muhanga is right. The richest and most propertied people in this country are civil servants. A prominent economist argued that an economy that has millionaire civil servants is a failed economy. And then he says, Honorable KABERUKA, civil servants are big fish, that they are not small people. And then, Honorable, let me hope the millions of dollars that Honorable KATUNTU recovered, let me hope that it did not end up back in the mafia's coffers. And then someone called Justice says, thank you, Charles, for the program. I think we need leaders of KABERUKA. You are being praised. Thank God. I think we need leaders, like more leaders of KABERUKA's caliber if we are to fight corruption. Corruption is really delaying growth in Uganda. And then to Professor GGOOBI, Patrick says, what would you do if you say the Minister of Energy, what would you do if, say, your Minister of, if you were the Minister of Energy, what would you do to reduce electricity tariff? And what is your solution, GGOOBI, on constrained demand for electricity in Uganda, given that we are deliberately delaying the commissioning of Karuma Dam? Someone called Stephen says, Charles, thanks for the show. What a fantastic panel in the studio. Thank you, Stephen. I wish to watch them more often. Thank you. Ask the MPs why some committees, Honorable KATUNTU, you have been a committee chairperson, you need to answer this. Stephen is saying, ask the MPs why some committees of parliament are branded juicy while others are branded dry. And then a number of these, let me see, there is another one here called Chris Quizera. Chris Quizera says, Honorable Margaret, you know that corruption is masterminded by politicians through appointments of technocrats, and then rewarding people based on political support. Appointments are no longer on merit. Talk of vote buying. And then he says, Honorable KABERUKA makes a good point on maps coming via corruption. All MPs of interest groups came via corruption through vote buying. That's the accusation Chris is making. I don't know whether there is evidence about that. Chris, can you provide evidence that all of them are corrupt? Maybe you can, but I would challenge you on that. John says, Charles, no, John, that's not. John is saying, Charles, MP to be 2026. No, I have not yet taken interest. When time comes and God blesses us, you never know. But he says, big up to Honorable Muhanga, for giving us good parliamentary leadership. People's expectations in the fight against corruption or theft is very high. However, to do this and to accomplish the work, there must be the will to fight the corruption. Proceeds from corruption must be followed and recovered the way Honorable KATUNTU did. My instinct tells me that the 11th Parliament, being mostly new entrants, will spend their first 2 years trying to get wealthy, acquiring property, and fighting government for the sake of it. Uganda needs a lot of prayers. This is from John Santos. John, thanks for your view. There are a number of messages here. Another person called Frederick Ruhangaye says, time and again we hear that Parliament is in deals and that Parliament House is in deals, especially when it comes to passing loan requests, supplementary budgets, and bills that seem to favor the people in power. That's what Frederick is saying. Frederick, the rest of the information, keep it sane. Let's keep it civilized. You don't need to use abusive language, Frederick. I also have, I have more here, and then there are messages that have come. One is from Nixon. Nixon says, Charles, I concur with one member who is saying that the buck stops with the president's hands, leaving the big fish to walk scot-free and then taking on the mukene. That is Nixon. And thanks, Nixon, for your information, for your sharing. And then someone called Justin from Entebbe says that there are unnecessary institutions that have been created to fight corruption and they have failed. And that's from, I don't see the name, but that's the message. I'm trying to edit the longer messages as and please, if you're viewing and you want your question or comment to be read, keep it short. And a sentence at most is good, so that I sell their property to go and bribe voters. Is that not corruption? Those are the messages that I can read, and I have not opened the ones on Twitter, but these are the messages that have come through WhatsApp and through the SMS platforms that we have, that we are using right now. But let's start with, we are left, I'm going to ask each of you, I'm going to give each of you 1.5 minutes, because we have about 7 minutes. But if I can give each of you 1.5 minutes, because we have run out of time, the interesting discussion about prospects of Parliament has turned into a corruption discussion. But I think it's okay, because that shows you that it's the interest of the people out there that Parliament must fight corruption hands-on, and that corruption is a major issue in this country. If a discussion on the prospects about Parliament, the 11th Parliament, turns into a discussion of corruption and the dynamics of corruption in politics, corruption in service delivery, then it means that is the issue, and that's what is coming from even the viewers out there. Honorable Muhanga and GGOOBI online, 1.5 minutes each. Respond to any of those questions that have come, and you make your winding, your summing point, and then I come back to the studio and we wind up the evening. starting with Muhanga, Gobi. Let's start with Muhanga.
Okay, thank you, Charles. And to respond to these questions, I would like to ask also the other panelists, especially Sarah, because she's really been at the peak of fighting this corruption, to coalesce with her other NGO members, different NGOs that are anti-corruption fighters, to join hands with everybody. Because corruption cannot be fought by one person. Not one person can fight corruption in this country. It's not feasible. It can't work. But if they put a lot of pressure on all organizations that they know here is where corruption is, I'll give you a scenario which shocked me, and up to today, I think about it and I can't believe that even within government entities, when we were doing, I sat on the committee on CHOGM, and one of the things we got to know at that time is that when the Minister of Foreign Affairs, which was the lead agency to spearhead CHOGM, and then the decorations and beautifying of Kampala was under the NAS, give them money to beautify Kampala, that if the Minister of Foreign Affairs wanted any activity to do with CHOGM prior to the arrival of the delegates, they would bring the Minister of Finance to give them money. Now, how far can corruption go when entities of government are breaking the other in order to get their money? Because the money is in the treasury. In order for you to get as a permanent secretary in the Ministry of Local Government, you've got to break the Ministry of Finance in order for you to access money of government. How far shall we go with corruption? That stinks.
Honorable Muhanga, I know that I know that you are very passionate on tackling corruption from the source, which is civil service, and I agree with you, that should be the spirit. But I have been a journalist first with you, but as you left and joined politics, I have practiced journalism, even monitoring Parliament. But I can tell you, politicians will not run away from the issue of corruption completely, because I know the amount of corruption that goes on in that house, and minus mentioning committees or names, we know now civil servants actually talk about this openly, that when it comes to committees, oversight committees, there is a budget that they have to put aside to meet, committee leadership, and we cannot run away from that. Parliament must address that for our country to grow, for our country to improve. And I think we shouldn't just use civil servants alone as excuses. They have a major problem, but I think politicians and MPs should take a lead in fighting within themselves, checking themselves as far as, oversight capacity is concerned.
Maybe we shall get one MP in the future chairing an oversight committee, and money is brought to him, and then he arrests this person with the money red-handed. Maybe that works. But you see, I know a lot of people in this country through work, through school, who are civil servants with too much money. I don't think any politician has as much money as they have. Those civil servants are in categories. Don't think everybody. They are the chief accountants, the permanent secretaries, the auditors. That's where the money stops. The others don't have it.
Okay.
But any chief accountant or principal accountant in the ministry is stinking rich.
Okay.
Why?
Thank
Why
you.
aren't other people
Maybe we should.
In human resources and elsewhere, how come they don't have that much money?
Do you know, this issue of evidence about corruption is becoming a major thing. And I have, interestingly, the president, I have it on authority, my sources from SEC told me, the president himself was concerned about the distribution of money by the different, teams looking for, campaigning for speakership. And he mentioned only three. The president himself
I'm told, I have it on good
Because
authority.
the current speaker didn't have any money, he didn't even have a coin to give anybody.
The president said,
He just said, "Oh my God."
the president mentioned Honorable Sechikubo, he mentioned Honorable Oboth, he mentioned Honorable Nabanja as the only people who did not distribute money, except he said, but I don't have evidence of how these monies were distributed. So maybe we should institute, like the Kenyans did, maybe we should institute, what do they call it? Lifestyle audit. If we don't have outright evidence, then let's look out for lifestyle audit, like Honorable Margaret Muhanga is saying. Going forward, this parliament should consider lifestyle audit law, and we say, if you have 10 billion shillings in property, cars, and all that, and yet you came when you didn't have even a bicycle, tell us where you got 10 billion in a year. Isn't that the aspect of life audit, Honorable Katuntu?
Yes, it is. You see, we make a very big mistake of trying to apportion. No, for us, we are clean. It is these ones who are okay, who are guilty. That's very wrong, and I would like to request my sister to abandon that sort of argument.
Yeah.
Corruption is a cancer. Even when you think you are not affected, you are eventually affected. And let me tell you a simple one. Because there is no drug in that health center in Toro, where Margaret comes from, and their relatives who are sick, it is going to be forced onto Margaret to pay the relatives' bills. Yet, if the money for the medicine had gone, and the medicine had not, they had not taken little medicine because somebody at NMS has stolen some money, or somebody at Means of Finance who was supposed to have allocated money has also stolen money, and the NMS has got less, and the medicine that has gone to the health center has been actually, the physical medicine has been stolen or sold to a private or expired. So all those, eventually, Margaret Muhanga digs in her pocket to address that problem. So all of us somehow affected by corruption. The best way to handle this is to fight it all without saying, oh, you know, this one is this, this one is this, and so on. Politicians, yes, there is a problem. Some politicians are thieves. They are greedy. They want to, somebody has come to Parliament for 5 years. He wants to drive the same car like ABDU KATUNTU, who has been there for 25 years.
For only 25 years.
I see reality.
Guys, I want to argument.
We need to wind up.
I wanted to add something on Honorable ABDU KATUNTU.
But
I think it is very important that when we start from ourselves, we shall surely clear the air. Honorable Muhanga said that there is a candidate who didn't have what to distribute. And the speaker and the president was candidly clear. Said the first person who didn't have a meeting was Oboth. Honorable Oboth. He's the one who didn't have.
That's what he told the caucus.
Yes.
That's why we're afraid.
You wait.
Let's get the facts.
Didn't have a meeting.
You were in the caucus?
Yes. And she was there.
Yes.
Herself. And Honorable Nabanja, because she had come the previous day, and then Honorable Sechikubo, those ones had never distributed any money.
That's what he told.
Which means the rest, including the one saying that didn't have money, to do what? To distribute. Which means the rest had.
No, he didn't mention the rest.
You wait.
No way.
One candidate.
No way.
The president mentioned 3 agents who were distributing money, but was not affected. So I want us such that if all of them were disqualified.
So meaning that he repeated the same things he told SEC, he repeated to caucus.
Which
because
means
me, I got information
if all
from
of them
SEC.
were disqualified, there would be justification to say that corruption is a fact and is a parameter to use in choosing the right leaders. So until that, and that's why I'm saying, if we have the will to fight corruption, without using it as a gimmick to erase and eliminate people. Because when somebody...
And those who do not distribute money, we are disqualified.
Until we reach at that level where we say corruption is a vice, let's do away with it in our country. That will shall eliminate corruption. But when we use it as a tool, when they want you, that's when they start tracking you. But somebody brings the file of 10 years ago, but you have destroyed the whole country for 10 years. Why were you not affected in that time when you did it? Okay. You get me?
Good. Because Sarah, in 1.5 minutes, your final remarks on going forward, what you want to see of this parliament?
No, I think really what we want to see, like the speaker, his speech after taking oath, he said they should serve the country and not any interest, party or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to that, and we will, you will, judge him, yeah, by his actions, according, yes, and then for the opposition, I hope to see a more organized opposition with alternative policies, with a clear agenda, and to engage in the pro-people, activities as they take on their work as shadow government. And for the government in general, I think really Magufuli solved the debate on corruption.
Okay.
The buck stops with the president.
Okay.
The president, and I hope even because we have seen bribes coming from his own office when constitutional amendments are involved. So the president should stop.
Do you have evidence?
No. I'm saying we have seen, because the newspapers have been reporting money for age limit, the barrels.
But
who was responsible?
In the law, newspaper, newspaper
okay.
reports are here.
Okay, I am quoting them. That's why I'm quoting my source. That's my source. So I hope that even the habit of going around the country with envelopes can stop, because that is even a bad image of a leader who intends to fight corruption. So the president must lead by actions, not words.
Okay. GGOOBI, I'm told you're back on air. Your line had cut. GGOOBI, your final,
yes,
your final word.
Okay, Charles, I think we need to realize that the institutions that are supposed to fight corruption, including the police, the judiciary, have year in, year out been ranked among the top 3 most corrupt institutions. And I suspect if the referee could be in the top, only that the referee cannot anchor them. The implication here, therefore, is that corruption cases cannot be effectively investigated and prosecuted in Uganda.
Yeah.
The Auditor General recently reported that now there is still a lot in order to stay out of the jail by sharing the loot with the system that is supposed to bring them to book. In other words, what we call syndicated corruption. The few successful, or those cases which have been successfully prosecuted, they are mainly self-reported by whistleblowers when they fail to agree on the sharing. I therefore think that this issue of corruption, we stop just debating it, it is the other person who is supposed to stop it. The system needs to be revamped, the entire system.
Okay.
And it's not about the politician or the other. Finally, You had somebody who asked me to comment on how to reduce the cost of electricity.
Yes, Patrick, I think.
You know, yes, in Uganda, we are still using the full cost recovery model on electricity. The person who is generating electricity up to distributing it to that entity, I think heavily today for some of those clauses of those contracts to free us from that full cost recovery, because in Africa we are this only second country. All other countries don't use this model. We need to supply cheap electricity to people, but the contracts we have cannot allow us. If I were a minister of energy, as somebody said, I would really prioritize renegotiation of some of these contracts to ensure that we free ourselves from them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gobi. Thanks, Margaret. Jonas Mbabazi Musinga says your question shouldn't be limited to the 11th Parliament only. We need to reflect on all our parliaments we have had since 1995. This under the new constitution, I think. Have they met the people's expectations? Good question. And then Johnny Musinguzi says, thank you, James, for your honesty. Please look into energy. 910 Uganda shillings per unit for domestic consumption is 25 cents per unit. Incredible. And I think those are the, and then someone called Pius Mohangozi says, Honorable James KABERUKA, glad to have tuned in and listened to you. And then someone called Rita, I think, says, I expect the new parliament to pay keen interest. No, this is just reposting. Okay, I think we need to end unless there is anything. I think 30 seconds. Honorable KATUNTU, you have?
Yeah, you see, my experience in Parliament is the first 2 years, you're going to see an active Parliament. The first 2 years. Because all these new members will be trying to make an impact. And they're going to be very vigilant. The public should expect a lot of activity. But as time goes on, despondence and then maybe even bad manners also creep in. You see, if you are talking about corruption, for example, you will not find a new MP trying to steal or to take a bribe in the first year, on the first month in an institution. You know, what the Baganda saw Mugole, these brides sometimes, they are well behaved and so on. So the first 2 years are going to be very good. I only hope the standards continue. Later on, especially in the last year or 2 years, they are looking at survival now. And sometimes there are pressures in the constituents. And the opponents have started moving around. There are no resources, and so that's where the problem is. So my colleagues who are coming as new people, please make your impact in these first 2 years. If you set the standards so high, then the people will be very happy with this 11th Parliament.
Okay. KABERUKA, you had raised your hand.
Yeah, thank you very much, Charles.
Less than a minute.
I think one thing is that I want to congratulate the new leadership of the Parliament. Congratulations. And then I congratulate the 11th Parliament. Honorable KATUNTU, congratulations.
Congratulations.
I think it is important that we take on this.
And Honorable Muhanga online.
Honorable Muhanga, we take on this discussion over and over again, but because it's part and parcel of our law. I think it is also important that we work together. We go beyond the party. We look at the nation Uganda. That's when we can deliver something for Ugandans.
Okay.
But these party issues come in and, clobber people. you cause a problem in the parliament there to do their work. It is important that we work together for deliverance of something that is palatable for Ugandans.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot to Honorable KABERUKA. Thanks a lot to Council Sarah BIREETE. Thanks a lot to Honorable KATUNTU and to Honorable Margaret Muhanga and Mr. GGOOBI, who joined us through Zoom. Thank you so much for finding time amidst your busy schedules to be on the show. And a big congratulations to the Honorable Jacob Lokori Olanya, who is now the new Speaker of the 11th Parliament. Thank you so much. And to his colleague, the Honorable Anita Among. When they were reading the results, I was somewhere with a group of friends, and someone was saying, what is the real name? Is it Among or Among?
It's Among.
And it's Among.
Annette Among.
Yes, so, but I told them, because these are Bantu speakers, so I told them, if you're finding it hard, just write the Among in English, and then, but call it in the local, because it is the same spelling. So, Honorable Anita Among.
Beatrice Anywa. The Honorable Beatrice Anywa. We call her Enewo.
Yes, so that was the joke we had. But congratulations to both of you, and we pray that God blesses you and with more wisdom, and leadership is, I believe leadership is entrusted from God on behalf of the people, and you hold it in trust. As you promised, especially the leadership, Jacob, interest of the nation, we shall hold you accountable by those words, and we shall not rest, and make sure we audit you by those words. To the team that departed, we pray that you are strong, and you know, that is politics. Politics is like sports. You lose one, you win the other. You don't always lose, you don't always win. But may God bless all of you. And to the country, there is COVID, and the threat is real now. COVID has come back massively. And please, let's get back to the soaps. If you had relaxed, please ensure that you social distance, ensure that you avoid as much as possible unnecessary social interactions. Try to avoid them, only go for those that you really cannot avoid, and ensure that you wash your hands clean with soap, and always have your sanitizer with you and sanitize regularly. As much as possible, let's ensure that we take care of our neighbors, we take care of ourselves, and ensure that we fight COVID together. Let's have ourselves safe. God bless you all. Until next week, when we have another show here on Wednesday at 10 p.m. God bless you all. God bless Uganda. Bye-bye.